Yeah, making her way to the mic. They start dimming the lights, you start feeling alright. From Birmingham, home of the Teddy Longs, and the room is stutters. More once you discover. For all of the lovers, Whitney Houston and Roman Reigns. For all of the lovers, and Mickey James and Marvin Gaye. For all of the lovers, and Sasha Banks, Janelle Monáe, Silk, Sonic, and Paige. Allow me to say, look, I just found a place, sweet escape for every one of us. I was kinda late, cause I just made it off the struggle bus. Walking by the fate, cause I know it's right in front of us. Yo, I ain't with the hate, gotta focus on what's great. Ladies and gentlemen, Steph Hardy is on the air. Had to drop a couple bars just to make you all aware. So, sit back, relax, enjoy the show. You know I go by Joe or the Wrestle and Flow, yeah.
Hey y'all, welcome to the season 3 premiere of the Hardy Wrestling Podcast with your girl Stephanie Hardy. Yeah, at the beginning of my episode you heard a song, and that song was done by Josiah Williams, aka Wrestle and Flow, formerly of WWE NXT. He was an on-air talent, and I got him to do the theme song for my show, which will definitely be a permanent fixture on my show. So thank you, Josiah, for that amazing song to intro my show. Now, of course, I've got your news and gossip-ish, and I have a special conversation with pop culture host TK Trinidad, who's also a mentor of mine. And of course, I'm just going to talk about what I've been going through and what I've been doing on my break for the last couple of weeks. So sit back, relax, and chill out and listen to an episode of the Hardy Wrestling Podcast. I missed y'all. All right, for this premiere news and gossip-ish, I want to start by talking about something that I saw yesterday that premiered Thursday night, I believe, but then I was able to watch it online, and that was the Vice Versa China documentary. Now, if you may or may not know, in the 90s, there was this wrestler named Chyna, and she was considered the 9th wonder of the world, and she was a former women's champion and the first woman to ever hold the Intercontinental Championship. And she was a bodyguard for DX, that's the group involving Triple H and Shawn Michaels and X-Pac and all of them. And she was a huge star in the 90s, because I remember seeing her, and wondering, like, is she really like a woman at first? Because I didn't know, that women at that time, I didn't know that women could be that muscular, but just seeing her just sort of, gave off the impression that you can be a woman and be super tough in this business and take out, men just as well as women. But there's a lot about her, career and a lot about her life that a lot of us did not know until now. It's like a lot of stuff had been rumored, but in the documentary it revealed a lot of stuff, because sadly she passed away in 2016, and her manager, oh my God, was working on a documentary for her called The Reconstruction of China, in which it showed her from living in Japan for like the last 3 years to coming back to the United States and doing Comic-Con things and doing stuff like that. But then it also showed her struggles with substance abuse and alcohol abuse, which subsequently led to her death. And it was just the saddest thing, because within this documentary you had these people working on the Reconstruction of China documentary, but then it never finished and it never came to fruition because she passed away. And also because the people who were in charge of it, her manager and the other people, it's like it seemed as if they were using her a lot of the time to sort of fit their own agenda. And it was just, not exactly the best. They weren't doing it with the best intentions, and they weren't trying to seek help for her when it seemed like she was going off of the wagon. It was sad to see, but then within that, they also told her complete story from when she started training as a wrestler with Killer Kowalski at his pro wrestling school, to her childhood trauma that she went through, where her mom and her dad didn't have the best relationship, and she witnessed them abuse one another. And then she witnessed her mom go from relationship to relationship and just sort of see that trauma play out as well, and how she never really spoke to her mom in like 30 years. And when she tried to reach out to her mom, it would always fall apart in some way, shape, or form, or her mom would just flake out on her in some way, shape, or form. And it was just really sad because it seemed like the only person she really had was her sister. And when they were close and when they were younger and they were working out together and stuff like that, she wanted to be a wrestler. Her sister didn't want to do it. And Chyna just went all in and just decided, that she was going to go and be a wrestler for WWE, which is where she met Triple H and started a relationship with him and all of that. And I definitely recommend watching the documentary. And it seemed like she trusted a lot of the wrong people with her life, because she was always seeking family elsewhere, because of course her actual family wasn't exactly, the best, it wasn't in the best situation. And it was just really sad to see her try to find a sense of belonging where it seemed everyone was just trying to use her, and even in the WWE. And it was just really, really sad. And the saddest part was just the fact that her manager, who was like using her to a degree, it's like she was seeking to find, asylum and family with him, and with her relationship with X-Pac and stuff like that. And it was just, she was just trying to find a sense of belonging and a sense of love. But it was always the toxicity of drugs and substance abuse that sort of, permeated a lot of her depression from being erased from the WWE when they let her go. And it was sad because they were making her, wrestle the women, and she wanted to wrestle the men most of the time. And she wanted to feel, heard, and she wanted to feel seen and treated like she mattered, because they compared her level of fame in the WWE to Stone Cold Steve Austin's fame, which I believe is relatively true, because she was kind of out there. She was on the cover of magazines. She was in TV shows. Like, she was everywhere, and she wanted to get paid what she was worth, but they weren't willing to do that. And which sort of gives off the stigma of, oh, you're a woman, you just need to take what we give you and not just demand more. And it was just a really sad situation all around. And even in her death, she didn't find peace, because it's like she was cremated, and then they put some of her cremains in the ocean, and her manager was supposed to give her some of her cremains to her mother, but her mother never saw those cremains, and they put her in an urn that was decorated with rhinestones, and she just wasn't treated with respect at all. And it's just so sad. And ultimately, what I would prefer is if WWE had any modicum of respect for what she offered in terms of wrestling and for who she opened doors for. They would induct her into the Hall of Fame on her own merit, and not just focus so hard on what she did outside of WWE in terms of her adult film career and stuff like that, because the WWE Hall of Fame is filled with so many people who've done so many shady things. And I can't imagine them, putting so much of a stigma on her just because she did this thing outside of WWE and adult film. I mean, whatever. I mean, so what? like, just give her her flowers. It's like you didn't give her her flowers while she was alive. The least you could do outside of her being in DX is give her her flowers for what she did for the women's division and how it exists now. Like, there would be no Jade Cargill, there would be no Bianca Belair, and there would be no Charlotte Flair or Rhea Ripley's if it weren't for China. And they need to respect that and actually, not, erase that from history and make it seem like no one cares about her, because it's clear from what I saw during the live tweets and stuff like that people still do care about her legacy. So if they want to do right by her in some way, shape, or form that they didn't do while she was alive, put her in the Hall of Fame of her own merit. And just not focus on all the personal stuff. Okay, Triple H, so what? She used to date you. And yeah, you left her for Stephanie, whatever. Nobody cares about that. We just care about China getting her just due. So that was a really tough documentary to swallow, but I do recommend that you do watch it so you can get that information. So also in the news, on a lighter note, we have Becky Lynch being rumored to have been at the Performance Center to train so she could prepare for her return. So PWInsider.com's Mike Johnson reported Friday that she visited the Performance Center as part of her preparations to step back into the ring. And of course, she's been off of television since announcing last May that she was pregnant, and her and Seth Rollins, welcomed their daughter Rue in December, so she's had a baby, and she's just been enjoying being a mother while also training at the same time. And it was really cool to find out from Valentina Loca, who participated in the Belladonna Division show. And it's like she also trains at the Black and Brave Wrestling Center that Seth Rollins owns and operates. And she said that at times, she would see Becky Lynch there, training with them and actually giving them, some pointers and stuff like that. So Becky Lynch has been teasing her comeback with posting pictures of curtains and stuff at Royal Rumble, and she posted a picture of herself working out that's with caption that spelled out night 1 of WrestleMania, which sent everybody into a frenzy because we thought she was going to come back and sort of insert herself into the SmackDown Women's title picture that involved Bianca Belair and Sasha Banks in their historic match, right? But she didn't show up at all. So she's been trolling us a lot of the time, which I think it's funny. But I believe that when she does come back, it will be with welcome and open arms, because we have been missing her a whole lot. So I'm ready to see Becky Lynch back. And a part of me wants to see her in some program with Seth Rollins, because he's just been off the rails ever since, she announced her pregnancy. So, if you remember early in the quarantine era, after she announced her pregnancy, everybody was congratulating Seth, and Seth just flipped out and went crazy, and he's been acting goofy ever since. So I'm ready to see that, take place. Also in the news, we have, in terms of baby stuff, Brandy Rhodes and Cody Rhodes welcomed their daughter, Liberty Iris, into the world yesterday. And that was really, amazing to see. So I want to give a congratulations to them. They posted on social media, and Brandy Rhodes said, "Happy birthday, Liberty Iris. We are so in love with you, beautiful, sweet girl. We are so fortunate and blessed to be your mom and dad." And Cody posted and said that she was born 6 pounds and 12 ounces. And that mother and daughter are doing wonderful. So we send a beautiful congratulations to them and their new baby girl being into the world. What a weekend to come into the world. It's Father's Day weekend, and and then today is Juneteenth too. So it's just a very beautiful thing. So congratulations to them. Also in the news, we have Mick Foley sort of getting down on his knees and begging WWE to push Cesaro. So he proved it during an interview with Stone Cold Steve Austin during his episode of the Broken Skull Sessions, which will air this Sunday after Hell in a Cell. So during the sneak peek that they posted on YouTube, Mick Foley was quoted as saying, "Can I talk to the camera? Vince, please, you..." When then he was talking to Stone Cold Steve Austin, he said, "You started in 88 or 89, 60 years of experience. We know a little something. We both proved Vince wrong, right? He had us set for this level, and I'd say we exceeded that level. Trust us and give him the chance. Let him prove. I'll get down on my knees and I'll beg. Vince, please. All we're saying is give Cesaro a chance. I just believe in that guy wholeheartedly. Give him a chance. And years ago, Vince McMahon stated in an interview with Stone Cold Steve Austin, and he stated, he basically said that while he gave his belief that there was something missing from Cesaro, he still felt like he could, grab the brass ring, and Stone Cold Steve Austin was offering his support for him. And it's just, and you can see that this year it sort of changed because Cesaro beat Seth Rollins, at WrestleMania 37 and had his first big singles win at a WrestleMania. And then he went on to challenge Roman Reigns for the Universal Championship at Backlash this year. Even though he didn't win, that was still an amazing showing by him. So you can't help but wonder, if one day he'll have a chance. So I would favor him and also Big E to possibly win Money in the Bank whenever they have it this year. Those would be my two favorites to win the Money in the Bank briefcase, and then he could hold on to that, for however long he chooses, and then cashes in maybe, who knows? So I'm definitely here for Cesaro getting a push because to me, he has everything. He has what it takes to be a top star. So those are my feelings on that. Also in the news, we have Roman Reigns, throwing mad shade at The Rock and John Cena. He responded to those rumors of big matches, with those two, because it's been rumored that John Cena could come back for SummerSlam, because that'll be a good moment for him to come back because they're planning to have a live crowd for SummerSlam and stuff in Las Vegas. And then there's also always the rumors that Roman Reigns could fight The Rock at either Survivor Series this year, because it'll mark 25 years since The Rock has been, had made his debut as a wrestler, or that they could have that match at WrestleMania in Dallas next year, which would be great for me because I want to go. So Roman Reigns had an interview with ESPN Sports Nation, and he suggested that The Rock and John Cena should remain in Hollywood rather than testing their might against him. And he was quoted as saying, "I'm a problem right now for everybody. If I were them, I would stay on set." Yeah, a match with The Rock is like a dream for a lot of our fans, but it ain't a dream for his, you know what I mean? I get a lot of this with both Dwayne and John Cena as well. These guys are doing very well for themselves. There's no question about it. If I were these guys, I don't know if I'd want to come back and deal with me. If I were them, I'd stay on set and keep pumping out these streaming service movies. Don't come to my ring is what I would do. And it's like you have a winning combination with these people. Roman Reigns and John Cena have fought before, and it was lightning in a bottle with that, because it's like you have Roman Reigns, who's like the most polarizing star at that time, and he was, a good guy around that time, and John Cena was just sort of, poking at him and sort of wanting him to sort of go bad. But now you have Roman Reigns, who's the bad guy, and then you have John Cena, who's gone on to be a star in Hollywood and stuff like that, and he's looking to prove himself, in WWE because he misses, wrestling. But it's looking like Roman Reigns is sort of taking his place. But with The Rock, it's like they're related. And you want them to fight each other because you want one to prove that he's actually in charge of the Samoan dynasty. And you got the other one who's the actual champion that we see week in and week out, saying he's the head of the table. So I feel like you have more of a winner with Roman Reigns and The Rock than you would with Roman Reigns and John Cena. So, I mean, you never know what they'll cook up. So I think it'll be interesting either way. And speaking of The Rock, to end this segment, he was voted People Magazine's list he was voted number one on why people should love America by People Magazine. And he beat out COVID-19 vaccines for the honor. And he also beat out Dolly Parton, Our Ability to Pivot, and the 4th of July. And those were the things that made the top 5 in the 100 Reasons to Love America. And he also addressed the idea that people would want him to run for president and stuff like that. And he said, you know, it's cool that people consider him for the honor, but he didn't want to necessarily do it because of all the BS and stuff that goes with politics, which is true, because it seems in politics, it's like everybody has, not everybody, but some people really have their own agenda when it comes to politics, as opposed to serving the people that they claim they want to serve. And I just don't think that The Rock would want to, you know, tie himself up with that, because there's so much influence that he already has on his own, being an actor, wrestler, producer, tequila maker, all of the above. Like, there's just so much that he already does, you know, within itself. So I just can't imagine that he would want to, you know, mess that up with a run in politics, even though they did address it, you know, on his show Young Rock, where he's running for president in a fictional world with that in the future. But who knows, you know, what he might do, because he does everything. So, and then this isn't the first honor that he's gotten from People magazine. He was voted sexiest man alive a couple years ago, and I can't argue with that, because he is a pretty sexy man. He has a beautiful smile and all that stuff. And he's also one of my favorite wrestlers as a whole. I just want him to come back and face Roman Reigns. That's all I want. So I'm just a simple woman. That's all I want. So that's all for news and gossip-ish. And now we're going to go to my conversation with pop culture host, icon, and extraordinaire, TK Trinidad. Hey y'all, welcome to another episode of the Hardy Wrestling Podcast with your girl Stephanie Hardy. And I have a very special guest with me today. She is a mentor. I would say she's a great mentor of sorts to me as I find my way during this podcasting journey. And she is a host of various podcasts and shows and all of the above. Her name is TK Trinidad. How are you, ma'am?
Hey, thank you for having me on your show.
I'm really honored to have you on my show, because I feel like I've been following you for like the past 5 years, and it's just,
oh my gosh,
wonderful how we've just connected now. And I'm just so happy to have you on here. Like, this is great. So I'm going to start by asking you, when did you fall in love with wrestling?
Gosh, it's like a two-part story. So every Sunday, because I'm from Canada, so every Sunday WWE would have wrestling on. And so my brother, my dad, and I would watch wrestling every Sunday. So that was like my first introduction to wrestling. And then I just am very active. If you guys don't follow me, I do a lot of, I'm just busy. I've always been busy. I've always been like doing two or three things at one time. So I was in like Girl Scouts and ballet and piano. So I just really didn't have time. I didn't watch much TV when I was a kid. And so then I got back into wrestling when I was in college, when I was on the track team at Mount Sac. And we started watching wrestling on Thursday nights. And then I lost track of it again. And then I got back into wrestling again because of Xavier Woods. I was in Toronto. I was doing TV there. And we actually talked about this like a couple days ago, because I spoke to him. I was doing TV there, and I didn't know. He told me this recently. He was with TNA, and they sent him to Canada without like any representation. Like, they didn't have a talent person. I thought he was with a talent person. So he walks into the studio, and you know, I'm just gonna put it. It's like I was black, he was black, so we said what's up, and we were probably like we were like the only young people there. And so we just became friends, and I went to go and see him. He gave tickets to the event that he was wrestling, was supposed to go and see him, missed out because he gave me the wrong address. We stayed in contact, and then one day, I wasn't watching wrestling, and I had no idea he got signed to WWE. And then one day I had moved to LA. He happened to be in LA for the EC3. He hit me up. He's like, oh yeah, you're in LA, right? I was like, yeah. So we go out, hang out. And he's like, yeah, I'm signed with WWE now. I'm like, oh, okay, cool. And so then he gives me like free tickets to the event. And I like absolutely fell in love again. And that was around the same time that I was with AfterBuzz TV. And around the same time that Christy St. Cloud, she moved to WWE, and Sean X-Pac was looking for a co-host. So I was probably into watching wrestling again, maybe about 6 months or so, when X-Pac needed a co-host, and they were like, hey, we know somebody, and that's how I got fully immersed into it again.
Yeah, I was actually researching you and I saw your website, and you and it did mention, there was a little quote that he said about you, and he said he was talking about how great you were as a co-host. And I thought that was interesting because how I got exposed to AfterBuzz is that I used to watch Scandal, and they had an after show, and I really loved their show. It was Emil Ennis Jr. and Cornelia Stradwick and two other people, I believe Sophia Stanley and Pam Erickson. And that's how I got exposed to the whole AfterBuzz thing. And then when I saw that they had them for wrestling, I was like, oh snap, this is cool. And that's how I found you. So it's just like, man, that's a cool story.
It's definitely it's a roundabout way, but it was just so funny because of me and I never know what wrestlers are just so, with their 5 billion names, I never know what to call him, but I just call him Xavier. But like we were just talking the other day, and it's just like so crazy on how long ago it was, and I had no idea that they just sent him there by himself. Like it was just so random, and now he's like, a dad, and he's like doing all these amazing things. So yeah, it's really cool.
Yeah, so you mentioned a little bit about your background coming from Canada and watching wrestling with your father and your brother. What was it like being raised in a country like Canada, which is sort of like one of the Mecca countries for wrestling? So what was that like growing up?
You know what? I had no idea. Sorry, folks. My phone is like going off because I'm waiting for my UPS driver. So I apologize. But I had no idea about wrestling. I knew hockey existed, but I was so laser focused into track. I was really focused into track. I absolutely love track. If I had known that there was no money in track, I'd probably focused in something else, but that's another story. But I was really focused into sports, and I was just really active. I did ballet for 15 years. So I really didn't realize how big wrestling was in Canada until I really started doing women's wrestling talk. And it's just like, oh, like Canada produces wrestlers like we produce hockey players. And yeah, I had no idea. I went to my first hockey game in Los Angeles. I eventually went later on in Canada, but it was just like, I had no idea. We weren't poor, but we weren't rich. Like we weren't doing, like, I went to one concert in my childhood. Like we weren't doing the extra stuff. Like we were eating and we were going to school. I was doing extracurricular activities. Like that was above and beyond. Like that was, we weren't watching pay-per-views. We weren't doing any of that stuff. It's like, don't even bother asking. It's not happening. So yeah, I had no idea. I was just living my life in Canada, just living.
Yeah, it's funny because here in the United States, the way that I was exposed to knowing that Canada existed was either number 1 in geography class and number 2 in WWE, because almost every wrestler from Canada, lets you know it. So it was always Trish Stratus was like Canada flag, and like so many different, of course, the Hart family with the Canada flag and everything. It's like if they were from Canada, you knew they were from Canada. Edge and Christian. So that was just how my biggest exposure to that, and sort of finding out more about that. And it's interesting that you say you really didn't have that much exposure in terms of going to events like that because of your background in track and sort of your extracurricular activities. So does your athleticism sort of fit into your career now, and how were you able to sort of apply that in your hosting in terms of wrestling and the questions that you ask various athletes and such?
I feel like, so like a backstory. So I did track, but then I also got a scholarship to Oregon, and I went pro for literally a hot second. Like I like to say I went pro, like I did, but I didn't because I was injured. But whatever. But I feel like running at that level and actually training, like I would train for 6 hours a day, and being in that kind of mindset helps me connect to other athletes as well. So, I had another show that I do. I have Marcellus Wiley, who's from Fox Sports, Speak for Yourself. And, we connected through football and stuff like that. So it's just one of those things where being a former athlete, it's just kind of like you can have those conversations, especially through retirement and stuff like that. And, even learning by watching wrestling in real life, like being so close up to the ring and seeing the amazement of doing what they do and not injuring themselves and the other people involved is like, it's bar none, because you have to have a real high level of skill. And so I can connect on that level with wrestlers. And I have a tremendous respect for them, because that's, you know, for me, it was track. Nobody touched me. I stayed in my lane. It was very safe. So for, you know, but I also played football, but wrestling is just on a whole nother level. It's a different skill set.
It is, and I do admire anyone who, you know, chooses athletics, because I was never an athlete myself, but just seeing the type of focus and, you know, having friends, you know, who were athletes and stuff like that, and the focus that it takes and the determination that it takes, you know, I admire it so very much. And I definitely fully admire when women do it too, because it's just like, yay, you know, you're just like me and you're doing this amazing thing. Yeah. And it inspires me, and it makes me feel like I can be strong, even though I know I can't really run like a whole mile and all that other and wrestle.
I mean,
whatever, but
it's not about that. It's just like at this point, for me, it's just being able to, like, our bodies are just so amazing. Like, if you just think of, you know, how you get up in the morning and you can walk to the bathroom, like, all that stuff is just amazing, that there's some people who can't do it. Or there's, you know, animals who have, like, they can't do all the things that we do. So just moving your body and then being able to just do it in different ways is just an amazing thing. So not even just the sports aspect of it, but if you really just, you know, like look back, like sit back and look at all the things that you do on a regular day that, you know, you couldn't do, you know, when you were a baby. You had to learn all these things. It's just our bodies are just so complex and so amazing.
Yeah, it really is. And then in terms of wrestling, it's like it's almost like when you were talking about how they learn how to not really hurt each other, and to do it in a way that makes it look real without drastically hurting people. It's like, that's the type of stuff that makes me happy, but then at the same time, I respect them so much for it. And it makes me mad whenever anyone says, oh, it's fake and all this other stuff. But my thing is, everybody, I heard Paul Heyman say one time, like, everybody can't be a wrestler. And, you know, and a lot of people talk about it as if it's the most simple thing. And it's not. Like, you have to have, you know, an athletic background. You have to have, like, some type of, you know, it takes a certain type of dedication and determination to pick up that skill and to make something look like it hurts, you know.
Right.
Even though sometimes it may still hurt, you still have to make it look like it hurts and try not to hurt the other person and take care of each other.
And then also believability. You could be an amazing athlete in the ring, and then just your mic skills are terrible. Like, you not only do you have to be a wrestler, you have to connect with everybody for them to either believe the story or, you know, get on your side or hate you. It's one of the two things. Like, if you're just lukewarm, then it's just kind of like, I mean, I love Roman Reigns just look wise, but, you know, when he was lukewarm, nobody really cared for him. But now that you either hate him or love him, like, he's the best thing since sliced bread. Like, I love this gimmick that he's doing. So it's just like, you can't, we've seen so many people. Like, I started following, gosh, I think she's like 2 boyfriends behind now. That wasn't really shady, but I think his name is Stacy, Simone Biles' ex-boyfriend, or maybe ex-boyfriend. He was part of the WWE, and now he's not. And he's an amazing athlete. Like, I follow him on Instagram, and I'm seeing him do these crazy flips in his living room. Like, he's an amazing athlete. And, you know, I don't know exactly why he got let go or if he decided to leave, but it's just one of those things that not everybody can do it, no matter how great an athlete you are. You need those both components to really succeed.
Right. I was rooting so hard for him too, because he was like, he had the look, he had everything, and then it just didn't work out. And I was like, well, dang.
Yeah. And you have people who are there for, you know, Aaliyah. She's been with NXT for what, 7 years? It's not longer.
Yeah.
What's happening there? Who knows?
Well, hopefully they'll be able to figure it out and she'll be able to rise more as an athlete. But back to you. Since I mentioned that I found you on AfterBuzz Television in 2016 on the Raw After Show, can you name any of your favorite moments or any favorite interviews that you may have had on that show?
Oh, wow. we didn't do too many interviews, but I mean, I love that Raw after show. It was fun. I mean, of course, my adopted annoying brother Evan T. Mack, who's now with WWE, The Bump. That's how our relationship started, and you know, actually it started before that. We actually did a red carpet together, but you know, he's great. I love to see what he's doing. I just talked to him a couple weeks ago, but he ended up being my co-host for Women's Wrestling Weekly at the time. Johnny Quasto's doing amazing things. Flobo. I mean, they're all Jack, Jim. I feel like I have to name them all now, but they're all. I mean, whenever I'm doing like panel stuff or anything like that, I always kind of give them a call to see if they want to hop on. So they're all. Yeah, it was fun times. It was definitely fun. The days I could do it, because some days it was just like it's not happening. So the bonds that were built, especially through the wrestling community within AfterBuzz, they're still there, and then I'm really happy to kind of say that.
Yeah, that show just looked like it was really fun, and something that is really fascinating to see is to see all of the people who are on that panel doing all kinds of amazing things in wrestling and in broadcasting and everything. It's just the thing ever. Just to see Evan Mack on The Bump now, it's just like, man, I remember I used to watch you on YouTube. Look at you.
He's doing so amazing things. I think he has like a movie he's working on, or a TV show. Like, I mean, in this industry, you can't wait for somebody to give you something. Like, obviously, if you get the job, that's great, but you also can't just rely on that job. And I think a lot of people who are successful is sticking to that formula. The people who are just kind of waiting for the next, you know, thing to come around. I mean, you're not really seeing them, and how does that company know that they can hire you if you're not doing anything? So it's kind of one of those things. So it's really great to see everybody doing amazing stuff.
Yeah, that's how I found Jay Washington too. So that was like when we did that watch along, and you said he was doing this, I was marking out in my head. I was like, oh
my God, I'm gonna tell him. It's so funny because every time I do something that has to do like either comic related or wrestling related, I always get like some type of message like, oh my gosh, Jay Washington. And I tell him, I'm like, yo, you're just jaded me. Like, okay. So he, like, we both get a kick out of that. But yeah, it's so hilarious. And we're actually doing another show on his network that's debuting on every Sundays at 2:00. So yeah, I mean, and I actually met him through AfterBuzz too, through Johnny. So, you know, it all kind of circles back.
Yeah, it's wonderful. So I want to switch gears and ask you if anyone has ever sort of tried to gatekeep you or make it seem like you shouldn't know as much as you do because you're a woman of color, or because they feel like, oh, well, since you're a woman, you shouldn't know this much when it comes to sports and stuff like that, or they're surprised if you do.
Not really. I think because I think because I have the stature of an athlete, even though I don't think I do anymore. I mean, I was at a pop-up the other day, and these 3 women came over, and like I have like a skincare line, etc. And they're like, "You look so strong." And I was wearing like a skirt and just a t-shirt. So I think because I have the structure, I think because of my ballet too, I have a very straight posture. I think that because I have the structure of an athlete, and I still walk like an athlete, like, you know, I still kind of I still walk like an athlete a lot. I think because of those things, people are not surprised when they hear that I'm a former athlete. So I think people are maybe almost, I don't know if it's like disappointed, because I don't, this sounds terrible. So when I was covering sports, I was heavily into sports. It's just really hard to know everything. So it's just kind of like, I get calls to do sports stuff. I get calls to do wrestling stuff. I get calls to do just entertainment stuff. And it's really hard to keep track of everything that's going on, and then run 2 other companies, and then have like other shows and book interviews. So it's just like, when I'm not getting paid to watch sports, it's like, I might get at the championship game. That's probably about it. But watching it daily, I mean, wrestling alone during the week is 15 to 20 hours.
Yeah.
And I am never successful at watching all that every week. Never. I mean, I don't even try. You know, I used to try and be disappointed. Now it's just like, yeah, we're just doing the Cliff Notes version of this particular show on, you know, NXT, and I caught Raw, and that's great. So yeah, there's just a lot going on.
Okay. So basically, because you have all of the background knowledge of how to be an athlete, and because you carry yourself as such, no one has ever really, you know, thrown anything negative at you.
No, not sports wise. Mm-hmm. As far as being a Black woman in the entertainment industry, it's very it's so for me it's a little bit different. It's being a Black woman, being from Canada, and not being the stereotype. Mm-hmm. Oftentimes people want me to be the stereotype of a Black woman, and I will never be that, because one, my mother's still living, not to say she was passed away, it changed, but I really respect her opinion. And the last thing I want is to get a phone call from her asking why I was acting the fool on television. So that really, when I look at job opportunities or get offered certain things, that's the first thing I think of. And then two, I mean, I'm not, at the end of the day, you're gonna either like me or not. I'm really kind of set in who I am. So if you want me to be, you know, a Black chick from the hood, like, no, I'm a Black chick from Canada with a Caribbean, you know, descent. And, you know, when I first moved here, people were shocked that I came from a 2-parent household, which is incredibly rude, but it's whatever. So yeah, so it's just, yeah, so it's just one of those things where I have received that a lot. But at the end of the day, we're in a really great, as people in the entertainment industry, we're in a really great position where you can create your own content, and you have access to YouTube and Anchor and Instagram Live and TikTok or whatever to create your own platform. And the only thing you really have to do is stay true to who you are and just be consistent. And the people that are going to like you will continue watching. The people who think that you're not Black enough, or you're not this enough, or you're whatever, then they're not going to watch, or they'll watch just to hate, which is great too. So yeah, that's kind of been my experience, but not so much on the sports side.
Yeah, I just know from my experience, I've had people sort of come at me in a certain way online where I'll post something about wrestlers in terms of being African-American wrestlers and representation in that way. And someone will say something off kilter like, why does it have to be about them being Black? Why can't they just be a great champion and all this other stuff? And I've also had a person, you know, shoot down an idea that I had about, you know, just something cool that I had thought about creatively in terms of wrestling. And They wrote a whole essay about why it wasn't a good idea. And it was just the worst thing. And they attacked me and all this other stuff. And I wound up having to just, you know, block him or whatever. But It's okay. You know, I just try my best to just keep my head up and to just know that my voice is important, and it's important for who it's going to be important for. And if it's not important for you, then you just need to leave me alone.
Right. No, yeah, that's the great thing with when Women's Wrestling Talk, aka Women's Wrestling Weekly, started. It was just like you had at that particular time. Now there's a bunch of women's wrestling podcasts out there, which I absolutely love. But at that particular time, you just had a lot of podcasts where it was just these pretty much white guys asking, you know, all these female wrestlers questions. And one, you know, coming from the perspective of being a woman and understanding that, hey, this whole hair thing and all of, like, those are questions that some of us might want to know. Those are some questions that we take in consideration. But, you know, also asking questions on race. Like, I have a folder pretty much of, you know, interviewing in particular Black female wrestlers where they were talking about their experiences, whether they had them or not, or whether, you know, somebody told them to change their hair, or like it's one of those questions that, you know, I can ask because I've also too experienced it. And where somebody else who has no idea that a Black woman can literally have a different hairstyle every day for the whole year, if not 2 times a day, like not understanding that you won't even think to even ask those type of questions. So I definitely think we were really I'm going to use this word not to put too much on it, but pioneers in being able to ask those questions and ask those questions before, you know, even the Me Too movement and all that stuff. Like we were really just kind of showcasing women who wrestle, versus having, you know, them be, oh, well, you know, we have a woman wrestler on and they've already had, you know, 60 episodes of male wrestlers. So I'm really proud of that. And that's where I really strive to like continue pushing the product forward.
That's great in the sense that you were able to sort of spark that movement of more women in wrestling podcasting, and it just inspires me to want to just continue to move forward in what I'm doing as well, and so many other of my peers, you know, just moving in terms of representation for women and hosting situations. So I'm really glad that you did that with that show and continue to it as well.
Yeah, shout out to Kevin Undergaro, because he was the one who really pushed it. It was an idea that it was a little idea, and he really watered it and helped it, you know, flourish. So shout out to him from AfterBuzz.
Okay, so I want to, like, you mentioned how you have like 2 other businesses. So outside of, you know, interviewing, you know, various celebrities and different athletes and stuff like that, what other interests do you have outside of that?
Okay, so I have 2 other businesses. One is Centerin.co, which is a skincare line, so body butters, body scrubs, body washes, massage candles, stuff like that. So me and my business partner started that. We both came up from TMZ, and, you know, we became business partners, started that, and that's going really, really well. And then from that birthed another company called Clipper Ranks, which is a beard oil company, and that's my business partner's brother. So the 3 of us are in that company together, and him, Errol Blair, he's actually the official barber to James Harden and Kanye West. So I pretty much CEO both of those companies, and then it's just, that's the whole thing. And yeah, then I have, I don't know how many shows, maybe 4 or 5 different shows, including the wrestling shows. I try not to count. But yeah, that's pretty much the majority of my day. If it's not doing the business, it's doing the shows, whether it's interviewing or booking guests or taking a lot of phone calls, which has been happening a lot in the last month and a half. I don't know why. But yeah, it's something around that every day. And then I'm really getting into charity work as well. So that's another thing I'm really passionate about.
Okay, so you're passionate about serving others while also just being an all-around businesswoman. That's cool. Yeah.
I mean, at the end of the day, and I don't want to get morbid, but we're not going to live forever. And I think the last thing for me personally, some people might be, you know, okay with leaving the earth and not necessarily leaving their mark. But for me personally, I really want to not only leave a legacy for my family, but also, whether they know my name or not, also just do something for others that doesn't relate to any financial gain for myself. Because everybody needs that step up, whether it be, you know, we have a charity that's going to do backpacks for kids. Like, whether it's like that kid gets a backpack, they might never know where it came from, my company, whatever. I don't really care about that stuff. It's more about, you know, that backpack may have really inspired him, because I love getting new stuff when I was a kid, especially the first day of school. So that new backpack with the stuff inside might really inspire them to like keep at it with education, and that might push them forward to study math and sciences and stuff like that. And that might push them forward to doing something that is going to affect us worldwide in a positive manner. And that could be just from getting that backpack. So, you know, I really am about humanity, and just, you know, just doing something that if I were to leave tomorrow or next year or 10 years from now, that I at least did something beyond my, you know, my circle. So that's really important to me.
Definitely. That's very, very inspirational. Even though you thought it started off kind of morbid, it was still, you know, it's very truthful, and that's something I respect about you. You're very honest. So you're very honest in the sense that, you know, it comes from a deep place, and that's just, and I definitely admire that. So how has the pandemic sort of affected how you do your interviewing and also your business ventures as well? Because I know it's affected a lot of people, and it affected everyone. We were all part of this global crisis, and it sort of made us have to really like have like a come to Jesus moment with how we're doing everything or not doing everything. So how has it affected you, and how were you able to pivot around it?
The first part of it, I was going through a lot of stuff personally. So it was, I had deaths in the family that wasn't because of COVID, but some stuff going personally around that time that, then you layer it with COVID and the world being shut down. It wasn't a really good position for me to be in, but also I don't know, there was just this moment where it was like after my birthday in August that I just decided that I wasn't going to, I had the resources and I had the connection, so I wasn't going to allow the pandemic to stop me, or I was going to stay at home, but we had technology. This wasn't like in the 1920s where, you're home and that's about it. So with the pandemic, also right when it hit, the business started to do really, really well too. And the business is like my baby. So when the pandemic hit, essentially we started off with making $1,500 in 2019. And we ended up making like $3,000 in 1 month in 2020 in the month of March, right when the pandemic hit, because everybody was home. So now I was like, oh, okay. So when this is no longer like, oh, we made some extra gas money, this is cute. This is now a business. So that is really grown to the point that we have, I think, 6 people on staff now. So that's been really helpful. So that started because of the pandemic. AfterBuzz had stopped. I don't know if they're coming back. I don't know what the word is for them, but AfterBuzz had stopped. Therefore, Women's Wrestling Talk was on a hiatus for about 4 or 5 months, and brought that back. Another show that I do, Black Queens Uncut, we just got picked up by a couple sponsors. So in the midst of that, I think if the pandemic didn't happen, because I ended up starting 2 or 3 other shows because of that. And I have another show called Peaks and Valleys, which I'm really, really proud of. It's a very motivational show where I interview different people from all walks of life. And they talk about times where, ish wasn't right. So I think because of the pandemic, if it didn't happen, then I probably wouldn't have did those shows, or, the business would have just kind of been still, kind of chilling. And now coming out of the pandemic, it's like, I'm getting back to being busy, but it's more busy doing my own things and essentially making my own money, which is great. So for me, it kind of turned out to be a blessing. It's like you stopped and then I was able to start again and kind of go from there.
Yeah, it's like a lot of people were able to blossom in ways they just never thought that they would. And I know definitely that happened with me in terms of starting a podcast, even though I started the podcast before the pandemic, like shortly before. Right. And it's just being able to do this has basically saved a lot of my mind in a sense, because you tend to focus a whole lot on what's going on social media and on the news and everything. But this sort of helps me to sort of focus on something that I know that I absolutely love.
Right.
Help me to find other talents that I didn't know I ever had before. Because
it'll definitely stretch you.
It did. And I'm really glad that it did. And I'm happy it did that for you as well. And I hope that you have been able to sort of find healing, through everything that you were going through previously.
Yeah, at the end of the day, it really, yes, I did, because everything happens for a reason. I'm a firm believer of that. And if the stuff life-wise didn't happen and the pandemic didn't happen at the same time, then I probably wouldn't have done half the stuff that I have done. So it's just kind of like it's almost like I needed that full, like, oh, what the hell moment. Everything is falling around me, including the world, and now everything else. And so it was definitely, to me, I feel like that was God's way of saying, okay, I've tried to tell you softly, but clearly you're not listening. So I'm going to essentially strip you of everything. And that's what happened. And he's like, and on top of that too, you can't go anywhere. So that would happen. That's what happened. And I definitely, for me, think of it as a blessing. I know a lot of people lost people, and I did too. But I think everything happens for a reason. And those who want to learn and listen and watch, they take that as a lesson. And those who don't, they continue learning until they figure it out. And sometimes they don't.
Yeah, God will definitely shake your table and sometimes flip it all the way over for you to understand what's going on.
That part, all that.
I mean, it was real, but it was funny at the same time.
Yeah, I mean,
image of him just going, "Yeah, you're not listening."
Yeah, pretty much. That's most of our conversations. It's just like now it's just like it comes to a point where you think that you're gonna. I thought for a very long time that I could plan everything out. Everything's gonna go according to my plan, and now it's just kind of like, okay, it took me a long time to realize that it's not my plan. Like all I can really do is me, and really stay in tune with that. So I that took me a long time. Being a first generation from immigrants, like we're very. I feel like there's a certain mindset that you have to do everything. It has to be perfect, and you realize that we as humans are nowhere close to that. And once you figure that out, then life becomes so much easier. So yeah, it took me a while to get there.
Yeah, it's going to take me a minute too, considering I'm just in my 20s and just trying to figure everything else out, but it's okay.
You know what? Honestly, you never figure it out.
Right.
I didn't realize that you never figure it out until literally like 5 years ago. And I was just like, oh, so you mean to tell me there's gonna be never a moment where you get the house, you get the kids, you get the fence, you get the car, and you're living where you want to live and you have the job you want to have. You mean there's not gonna be a moment where, okay, I'm done? You mean the kids are gonna start acting up and your husband's gonna start acting up and the dog decides to die? Or like, it's never gonna be, it's never gonna be like, once I realized that, I was like, oh, okay. All right, cool. Like there's no point, like you strive for your goals, but then there's just no point to strive to that ultimate, whatever that is in your mind, because it's never gonna be exactly how you envisioned it. Because if there's other people involved in the mix, everybody wants to do their own thing, or somebody just is having a bad day or whatever. So it's just kind of like, okay, well, clearly you guys are not going to read the script that I wrote for you guys. So we're just going to go with it.
Yeah, and I'm going to keep that on replay for the rest of my life. So we're going to switch gears back to wrestling, though. So what would you say how would you feel about the differences between in wrestling between when you started watching it and now?
I love seeing, so when we started, there was a lot of indie female wrestlers. So that was great to see. And I love to see them either being signed to places or people are now recognizing what they're doing. So it's not necessarily the signing part, but it's like their work is coming, like people are appreciating them for their work. And there's just so many. It's not the traditional like 5, 6, 7, 8 WWE female wrestlers. It's like, you have Thunder Rosa, you have Willow Nightingale, who's like breaking out, but she's been around for a minute. So you have like so many women, Faye Jackson, like Big Swole. We have so many women that, even when we interviewed them, like they've already been on the scene. It wasn't like they're brand new. So I love the fact that it's like the world is catching up to who they are, not like they're coming into who they are. It's like the world is seeing them finally. So I love seeing that. And then it's also expanding female wrestlers. Like at one point, again, you would just know, 5, 6, 10, whatever. And now you can name different promotions. You have, Maria Kanellis doing stuff for ROH. Like you have just so many wrestlers just kind of going all over it. Thunder Rosa, Mission Pro Wrestling, like what she's doing is amazing. So it's just seeing all that stuff and seeing that we're creating our own, I say we as if I'm wrestling, but they're creating their own kind of lane that it can also involve the male wrestlers, but it doesn't have to, and there's still going to be a great market for it. So that's the biggest difference that I saw. There's just so many different promotions. I mean, we had Shine and Stardom that's been there for a long time, but just so many different promotions, and it just seems like, you know, even with Shine, people are kind of treating it like, oh, okay, well, it's just like indie. But now it's like everybody's taking a lot of these promotions seriously, because now you have other female wrestlers that are going to all these promotions that you might have been following here, and now she's doing something over there. So I'm just excited to see that. And I don't know, it's a catch-22 with WWE. I kind of feel like their storylines could be kind of bland. So I hope that one day I think they did hire 2 female writers. But I hope that one day they kind of figure it out, that it's no longer, oh, we're best friends and we're no longer best friends, and like they really flesh out storylines for the female wrestlers. So that's what I hope, in particular for WWE. I think Impact definitely does great storylines. AEW is kind of, it just depends on who it is. But again, they're just starting, so you can't expect them to be, you know, a grown-ass man in the business when they literally just started, you know, less than 5 years ago. So I'm just excited to see that. But again, it's another promotion that we didn't have 5 years ago. So the opportunities and just so many female wrestlers coming up, I'm just kind of excited to see what's going to happen with all that. So that's the biggest difference.
Okay. It's funny because I was gonna also ask you, like, how did you feel about the state of women's wrestling now? But you sort of answered that.
Yeah.
Answering that question. So it's okay.
It's coming up. Yeah, it's coming up. I feel like we have to, I was actually talking to Jay about this. It's kind of one of those things where we have to, it's a catch-22. It's like you can demand a promotion to have more places for women, all this other stuff, or you can create a Mission Pro Wrestling and just do it yourself. And I mean, I kind of am leaning more to that. It's just kind of like, why not just create, instead of begging to be at somebody else's table, why don't you just create the table? So I'm more leaning to that. I love what Thunder Rosa is doing. But again, it's you know, you see the bigger, you know, WWEs and etc., and you're seeing that, and you're just kind of like, really, real? This is okay. But you know, I don't think WWE is catering to people who watch them every week. So, you know, if they're not for us, then, you know, it doesn't really matter what we think. You're now just complaining to, you know,
a brick wall.
Yeah. So they're gonna do whatever they want to do when they want to do it. You know, you tweeting and hashtagging all sorts of stuff may get a little blip, but they already have a game plan and whatever, you know, especially for Raw and the pay-per-views, whatever Vince decides, I mean, is gonna go. It's not like I'm gonna say, I want this, and Vince's like, you know what, TK, you've been talking about this for 6 months. You're absolutely right. I now see your vision. That's not going to happen. I mean, I wish it does. It happens in my mind, but that's not going to happen.
And in the moments where it does happen, though, like the moments where it kind of does happen, where they kind of listen to us, they throw us a little bit of a bone. Mm-hmm. Sometimes it really can be, you know, beautiful in the sense and sort of fulfilling in the sense, because I think about Kofi Mania, and then I think about Bianca and Sasha and how we sort of pushed for them on social media to be the main event, and then boom, they were. So
yeah, but see, that's the thing, though. It's the caveat with Kofi wouldn't have happened. Like, it wasn't their thought. It was just out of something that happened. Yeah. And I think with Bianca and Sasha, unfortunately, and I don't want this to be taken away or misconstrued like they didn't deserve it, but it's in the era that we're in. Like, no offense to people who are not Black and women watching this, but Black women are popping right now. So that's, you saw Bianca on Self Magazine. You saw Bianca on pretty much, she did an interview with Ellen, I believe. Like, so you saw Bianca doing the circuit before the pay-per-view. Mm-hmm. But, you know, would that have happened 3 years ago? And we didn't have Women's Evolution, you know, this past, well, obviously it was the pandemic, but the year before that, we didn't have Women's Evolution. According to Maria Kanellis, that's not happening. So is that, you know, are these things that are happening, they're throwing us a bone because it's the in thing, or they legitimately feel that way? Mm-hmm. So, you know, again, I don't want to be one of those people who's like, it's just bashing WWE, because I watch the product, I appreciate the product, probably go to Vegas for SummerSlam. But, you know, when I look at how things happen, it's just kind of like, you know, I don't even know if this is a good analogy, but it's like finding out your significant other is cheating on you, and then they decide to like treat you amazingly because they got caught. But why could you just
treat me amazing from the jump?
Yeah, so it's just kind of like, I don't know if that was a really good analogy, but that was the first thing that came to my mind. So it's just kind of like, you know, if they did that push for Kofi before, like, if that none of that other stuff happened, yes. But Big E, it seemed like that was the idea. They were gonna push Big E, but that was after they split up, you know, New Day, which I don't appreciate, but I can kind of see where the vision is. So, you know, it is what it is. I'm still gonna watch it. They do have some great moments where it's just like, oh, this is amazing, and they have some, you know, sorry moments. But if you're gonna perform every week 3 hours, you're not gonna have a great performance every week. It's just not like it's just the law of science, nature. If you look at any professional athlete, they're not gonna be able to play every single game at 150%. It doesn't happen. You're not gonna be the best mother or father at 150% every single day, especially with kids who are active. It's just not gonna happen. So, you know, you just take the good with the bad. You watch it and you're like, oh, this is terrible this week. And I'm going to watch something else. Or you watch it and you're like, okay, I can complain, and now I'm going to move on. So, yeah.
Yeah. So, who would you say is in your top 5 in terms of wrestling, you know, male, female, or non-binary?
That's really hard. Okay, so I'm gonna go like this, because I personally feel after I do interviews with people, I kind of, especially this great interview, I feel like they've become my friends. So I cheer for them a little bit harder. So for those who've like watched me on AfterBuzz and stuff like that, I absolutely love Naomi. I think they're doing her dirty, but that's another whole conversation. But Naomi for sure. Oh God, that whole family just takes up my 5. I love the Usos. I absolutely love. You know why? Because I interviewed Naomi, and oh my God, this is so terrible. I'm gonna just say her husband because I get them mixed up. But he was there, and he was there. And then I think maybe 3 or 4 months, Jimmy?
Yes, that's Jimmy.
Okay. Maybe 3 or 4 months later, I went to SmackDown in Ontario, and I had gotten seats. Like, I was literally on like the front row, but Ontario's like super small. It's not like Staples Center. So you're getting tickets to the front row is just like whatever. So the front row, and Jimmy and Jay were there. And the next day I ended up going to, I think it was a house show. The next day I ended up going to, I don't know, Raw. I can't remember which show it was. The next day I ended up going to Staples Center to watch the live show. And then I was backstage. Naomi invited me backstage, so she's forever going to be like my favorite person. And it was just so surreal. But I was backstage, and Jimmy saw me. He's like, you was at the live show yesterday. I was like, yeah. He's like, why did you say hi? I was like, oh, I didn't even know you remembered me. So it's just kind of like, yeah, it just, I for me, my top 5 is not based off of talent, even though those 3 are all talented. It's just more based off of, I think it's humbleness. Like, I love people who are in positions of power or positions of success when they act nice and they don't need to. That really, really impresses me. That really, really just kind of touches me. That really, really makes me want to go hard and defend you in any platform. So that's more of like a personal thing. So I would say those 3 for sure. I would say Xavier, but I feel like he just doesn't even care. He's just such a weird one. Damn. Oh gosh. Okay. I hate when people do this to me, because I'm like, in one sentence, or can you give me 5 and then they give you 10? So I'm gonna say Naomi, the Usos, Pac and Steve Austin.
Okay. That's pretty solid. That's really, really solid. And I can respect that.
Yeah. I try. I was like, man, there's so many people. I was just like, all right. I just go with people that I know. Steve Austin was another one. He came in for an interview when I was at the X-Pac show, and he was just so, like, that was surreal. Because it's just kind of like, and like he'd be like telling me jokes and like nudge me like, oh, is that funny? And I'm just like, I am sitting next to Steve Austin right now. This is highly okay. This is all right. We're doing this. So, and then we had a beer with him. So it's just so, what you see on TV is exactly who he is. Like, that's another thing too that I really like. So I'd say I'm going to go with those 5.
That's wonderful, because my mom loves him, even though she doesn't watch wrestling, but she fully identifies with him, and she just loves how genuine he seems. So it's great to know that he actually is, like that. Like,
yeah,
oh my gosh.
He doesn't seem like he doesn't like. And I only met him that one time, but you kind of know, especially when you're interviewing somebody before and after, like before, during, and after, who's more of an introvert if they turn it on while they're on camera. But, it's also the people that, again, they don't have to learn your name, or they don't have to, they could just, all right, I'm here to do this interview. Let me do this interview. So, he was really, really cool.
Okay, and one final question. What does the future hold for you, Miss TK Trinidad?
Oh, God. Well, Women's Wrestling Talk is doing really, really well, and so we'll have some big news in a couple of weeks. So that's doing well. I'm hoping to expand that into a network where, it's kind of across the board where other female hosts and podcasters, can do shows. We can also give, do more amazing interviews, do panel stuff. So Women's Wrestling Talk is becoming more of a network. So that's one thing. My other show also might have some big news with the network. So yeah, I don't want to say what the future holds. I just see it being very bright and very successful on all levels, not just business but personal as well. Like my on top of working a lot, which I'm trying to balance as well, is just being a great person to family, friends, and just people in general. Like if I were, again, not to be morbid, but if I were to, something were happen, I just want people to say like, she might have spoke her mind, but she was like nice, or she was this, or she was passionate. Like those characteristics that I pride myself in, I want people to see that as well. And that's kind of that's my daily thing. So it's for the future, just be happy and make money, I guess.
Okay, well, thank you so much for coming on the Hardy Wrestling Podcast. I appreciate you and your input in my life and in my hosting life so very much. And I definitely admire you and everything you've done. So if you would just like to put yourself over and tell everyone where they can find you and follow you and, anything you have coming up, just put that over right now.
Okay, well, folks, you can follow me on everything at TK Trinidad. On all social media platforms, you can go to tktrinidad.com to check out interviews or events or stuff. That's all changing too, but there's still a website there. You can go to womenswrestlingtalk.com, www.talkpod.com to get all the women's wrestling stuff. My show Peaks and Valleys comes out let me see if I can get the order of this right. Peaks and Valleys comes out every Monday. Every Tuesday, Women's Wrestling Talk comes out. Every Sunday, Talk Blurry to Me, which is on Jay Washington's network, comes out. Every Wednesday, Black Queens Uncut comes out. And then Thursdays, we do Women's Wrestling Talk News. I think that's it. And there's another show coming out, but I haven't decided what day that will come out. So pretty much just go on my IG at TK Trinidad, or you can go to the business one, which is at Center & Co. We're also having a charity event. It's a roller skating charity event where we're giving backpacks for the kids. That's going to be happening July 30th. So even if you can't come, you're not in the Los Angeles area, you can donate money. All the proceeds, like 100% of the proceeds, goes to buying backpacks for kids for this school season. So that's pretty much it.
Well, thank you so much for coming on the Hardy Wrestling Podcast, and it was such an honor talking to you.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right. You be good.
Thanks.
Okay, so I was sitting with my friends one day and they asked me, Stephanie, how do you record your podcast? And I said, with the Anchor app on my phone. And they were like, are you serious? I'm like, yeah, it's that simple. It is absolutely free. There are creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone and your computer. And it will distribute your podcast for you so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and many more. You can also make money from the podcast with no minimum listenership. And it's got everything you need to make a podcast in one place. They even have classes and stuff that you can listen to that will give you all kinds of good tips on what you need to do in order to make the best podcast. So if you want to do this, download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. That's anchor.fm or download the free Anchor app to get started. Okay, so I want to thank TK Trinidad for coming on my show. And like she said, you can follow her on all of her platforms at TK Trinidad. And I would venture to say you should also follow Women's Wrestling Talk. Please follow that podcast because it's absolutely amazing. And the work that we're doing with highlighting women's wrestlers and women's referees and all of that is just absolutely amazing. And we're also looking for people who are passionate about writing for women's wrestling and stuff like that. So if you find us on Instagram or Twitter, please DM us your information so we can work with you, so you can, learn more about writing press releases and doing live news programs and stuff like that. Like, do that because it's absolutely amazing. And I've learned a lot during my time with them, and it's just absolutely amazing. So please follow us and get the hookup with that. So in this season 3, there's so much going on. There's so many big things happening with the podcast and stuff like that. I'm going back to Belladonna Division to be a commentator again in August. So I'm going to be preparing for that. I'm going to have lots of great guests on this season. And there's just so many other big things that are happening on the way. There's going to be a couple of changes. Already there's a change. I have a new logo that's official that was done by Clement Wong, and I thank him so much for that. He's done so many professional logos for the WNBA and even for Women's Wrestling Talk, and I'm just so grateful because it really reflects the spirit of the show and the spirit of me, and I'm just really grateful for him and that work for that logo. And hopefully one day, I'll actually branch out and actually have some merchandise made. Some more merchandise made, with the logo on it and stuff like that, so people can have it and represent if you love the show and stuff like that. But like I always say, if you want to follow me on Instagram and Twitter, you can follow me at Hardy Wrestling Podcast, and on Twitter at Hardy Wrestle Pod, and you can follow me on Instagram at Queen Steph Hardy and on Twitter at Queen Steph Hardy as well. Please listen to the show everywhere on Anchor, Spotify, iHeartRadio, on the YouTube channel, and just continue to support my show and continue to help support its growth. I hope you're staying safe and being your best self. And I hope this weekend you're celebrating, if you do celebrate Father's Day, I hope that you are spending time with your fathers, grandfathers, father figures, great grandfathers, and all of those people in your life who've, given you something, and added to your life in a fatherly way. And I'm hoping you're celebrating Juneteenth as well. It's the first time it's being celebrated as a federal holiday, and I'm really excited about that. I got off from work earlier yesterday because of it. It was cool. So I'm hoping you're celebrating that and also learning about what it actually is if you don't know. And I just hope you're also just being your best self. So with that in mind, thank you for listening to this new episode of the Hardy Wrestling Podcast. And I'm your girl, Stephanie Hardy. And until next time, bye, y'all.